So, Kate,
Gwen,
it's the 100th episode of Instigating Women Plus Friends.
can you imagine?
No, 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 no. Since 2020, these have been created, originally with Liz, now with Kate, and guests sometimes, Liz sometimes. But wow, 100 episodes.
It's a really great accomplishment.
Yeah,
Congratulations.
fun to do, fun to do. Good
Hmm.
to do, I think. I hope people are learning and having a good time, if nothing else.
Yeah, being entertained by our goofiness, if nothing else.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So, we talked about something that we hear from clients about every now and then, and I think it would be a good topic for today. Um, Many provide feedback that we inspire them, that they too are in corporate, they too are thinking about, oh gosh, wouldn't it be great to leave?
Be my own boss.
Be my own boss, set my own pace, set my own rules,
Yep. Get
make
off
my
the,
make decisions really quickly,
yeah,
um, good or bad.
live into my values. I hear that one a lot.
Live into my values,
Yep.
just freedom, um, instant sense of purpose.
Hmm.
That's easy.
Yep.
Excitement, fun, independence, autonomy.
Boundaries.
Yeah,
Yeah. Easier to create boundaries when you're working for yourself than when you're working for someone else.
exactly.
Hmm.
And yet, I thought today we should provide a reality check.
Hmm.
What it's really like, pros, cons. We've talked about the pros already.
Yeah.
So let's get started and provide a reality check.
Yep. How to go from, or what our journey was from corporate to being an entrepreneur,
Mm-hmm.
the good, the bad, and the ugly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You want to go first?
Yes, my journey was a little bit different than yours because I started while I was still in corporate.
Mm-hmm.
So the way that I structured it was I went part-time, 80%, and I took Fridays off.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's, you know, 80% for them, 20% for me, right?
Okay.
In reality, it was 100% in 4 days for them.
Right.
I did get my weekends back, which was lovely because I used to work quite a bit during the weekends. And all of a sudden, when I took a pay cut, they weren't calling me on the weekends hardly ever. So
Nice.
I say it was 100% for them in 4 days. I just ended up
Mhm.
working 4 10s
Yeah.
in those 4 days. But I was working 50 to 55 hours a week beforehand. Now I'm
Mhm.
working 40 hours, but it made those 4 days really, really long. And it cut out any of the like mentoring or development that I was doing for work. So I was really concentrating on my 1 day a week growing the business. And when
Mhm.
you grow the business in 1 day a week, it grows slowly. It grows very, very slowly. So over the course of 2 years, I inched up my client base. I was able to grow. So I had like 6 or 7 clients by the time I left, and not all of them went with me, but 6 or 7 clients by the time I left. I had my infrastructure done, my website, my processes, everything done as I launched into it. But I think the biggest mind shift that I had to get to was I have a saying, wherever you go, there you are. And so the first 6 months of coaching, I think I completed 3 or 4 certifications. And I had been completing certifications while I was doing full time work as well. But I completed 3 or 4 certifications. I was on vacation, taking fake calls. I was acting like I was in corporate, even though I worked for myself.
Yeah.
And I had to realize that, oh my gosh, like I'm in control now. And yet my life is just as stressful, just as busy. I have my calendar is booked with all these things. And is this what I really signed up for when I said I wanted to work for myself? So I had to really go through and be disciplined. And the next 6 months, I didn't sign up for anything new. I just completed what I had on my plate. And I had to really dial back in order to force myself to not over grind in my role. And through that kind of like, I did it too much. Now I wasn't allowed to do any of it. Then the second year, I kind of went into a more steady cadence. Um, but I think the hardest thing about growing your own business is you're in control of you, but you're not in control of the economy. You're not in control of clients. You're not in control of, are you a right fit? It's a big risk you're taking. There's a book called the orbiting the giant hairball, and the hairball is corporation, and it comes with a lot of great things like health insurance and a steady
Mhm.
paycheck, whether
Yeah.
you're sick or not. Um, so there are good things in the hairball. It's just whether or not, you want to be in that safety zone or if you want to take control. Um,
Mhm.
so those are well, and I think the last thing is like you have to do a lot of promotion. You have to do a lot of putting yourself out there. And that was really hard for me. I was
Mhm.
not prepared for how much um, development I had to do.
Mhm.
Um, and they say that you should really plan in any small business to not be profitable for the first 2.5 years or a year and a half, 18 months to 2 years. Um, and it's because you're building your business and you've got to get the people out there for the referrals, and you've got to get yourself out there for people to find you, and still you might not have something that people are wanting to buy. So I think those are my main things. I've got a couple more things, but I want to let you talk about your
Mhm.
experience, and then we'll talk some more.
Yeah, sure. And I'm so glad you brought all those things up because I did have a different path.
Mm-hmm.
I studied a part of my coaching, my initial coaching during the first few months of 2020, and I started my company in May. So there was a tiny overlap, but not nearly what you experienced, and all the risks that you've described in terms of, you got to pay to go to class to get certified in things if you go down a path like ours, where you are a key subject matter expert in something that you didn't have during your corporate career. A lot of what I do translates from corporate, but you and I both had to get certified to be a coach if we want to be a credible coach. Now, there are all kinds of people out there that call themselves a coach
Yeah.
just because they mentor people or like the idea of being a coach. But you and I both wanted to be certified, not only in basic coaching, but many other things. So there was a time overlap for me. But then it felt like a cliff, edge of a cliff, going from 24/7, 365 texts and emails to crickets, especially because we started in 2020. So truly pandemic, isolation, um, just complete change of pace,
Yeah.
complete change of being with people. Um, and when you're overwhelmed and overworked in corporate, the first thing you want to do is to get away from people. But it doesn't take long before, there's daunting silence, deafening silence, especially when the work you do is virtual.
Mhm.
And it's not deafening and daunting any longer, but there are very few ways to interact with people, at least in our line of work, unless you're doing in-person coaching or groups and teams and that kind of leadership development. So
Yep.
just
Corporate
something,
coaching. Yeah.
yeah, kind of corporate coaching. So something for people to be aware of, especially if they're an extrovert. That can be a big gap. I think for me too, because I love to go to school, I love these certifications. I'm just something I never got to do when I was with corporate, where was didn't go to many conferences. Did I remember saying I haven't had time to read a book in years, like really read a book. Um, Now I'm like on overload.
Yes, you
I
are.
I sign up for all kinds of trainings, even if it's not certification related, just because I'm curious, just because I want to learn. I buy books all the time. I am reading all the time, at least one book, if not two or three, at a time. And so besides that shift, it's expensive.
It's expensive.
It's
Yeah.
expensive. None of these training programs are cheap.
Nope.
There are online programs that have small price tags, but generally that's for one level, and then there are subsequent levels, or there's follow-up required or strongly recommended. Um, and I did go back and I looked at, the last 2 years, all expenses. In 2023, I spent between the trainings, the certifications, but also just to run the business. I have two people that work for subcontract for me. One is my virtual assistant, but also basically office manager. I wanted that person to be able to do the scheduling of my clients, to do the billing and collecting, because number one, I didn't want to do it, but two, I wanted to separate me as a coach from having to be the bill collector, because
Yeah.
that can get awkward and hard. And then I have a social media person, again, who helps me on a weekly basis. We talk once a week just to figure out what to promote, what to focus on, and how to put posts out there. But mostly it's because I was that corporate kind of person that was not just busy, but I was so involved in the internal operations that I did not think I needed to ever post on LinkedIn or really network. As I said, I didn't even take the time many years to go to conferences. I won't say I slacked. I just did not prioritize networking or getting out there. And that was a mistake. So that's a big lesson that I want anybody to know is you need to be networking throughout your career. You need to be making connections. You need to go to conferences, even though companies, especially in poor economies, limit travel, limit conferences, or make you feel guilty if you go. If you don't need continuing education, it's deprioritized. That's a mistake. You need to get out, you need to talk to people, you need to educate yourself, but more importantly, you need relationships. Whether that's because you're going to start your own business or just because you need to stay relevant, you need to stay top of mind to people if you're even looking for a new role
Mhm.
at some point. So I have those two staff. I have all the training, the books, the computers, the website, all these things come with annual fees,
Calendly,
annual
Zoom,
updates, all
web hosting.
legal fees. So in 2023, I spent $85,000. This past year, 2024, $100,000. 23 was different because for 6 months out of the year, I had a consulting gig, so I wasn't in class as much, and I wasn't spending as much money on resources because I was almost full time with that consulting gig. But in 2024, I didn't have a consulting gig, so it was full time coaching a whole year. And so my point is, it's expensive.
Hmm.
Even if it's a virtual work from your home kind of career. So you need to think about, as you said, if you have dips at the beginning or even throughout your
Hmm.
calendar year in business, and there are seasonal dips, at least in coaching for me.
Hmm.
A lot of people like to start being coached at the beginning of a year. They tend not to want to be coached in the summer months. Then it ramps back up. So it's almost like a school year kind of
Yeah.
cadence, at least that I experience. And I offer packages that are 3 months at a time. Not, I don't limit my clients to annual coaching packages. And so that seasonality of the revenue is another thing to really
Yeah.
think through.
Yeah. I was reflecting on that earlier today because we're doing some tax stuff. And you can work for the first quarter and not make anything because you have your built-in expenses,
Right.
and I don't know any people who can be like, okay, I have faith in myself to just be covering my expenses for 3 or 4 months or 5 months, especially in a down year, because this is a down year, right? There's a lot of questions around the economy, inflation, what's going to happen, stock market's down, et cetera. And because my clients are not corporate, it's all their money. It's
Mhm.
not I'm still working off my expenditures for
Mhm.
the year.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, it's a big deal.
a lot of them are annual, you pay them up front, et cetera.
Yeah, exactly. And let's touch on that a little bit in terms of the corporate clients. I think it's important for people to consider in whatever line of business they go into, um, are they shifting completely? Or are they almost riding the coattails of their career? And if they're going to ride the coattails of their career, it's really best to start thinking about how to negotiate corporate contracts prior to getting into the business. Um, if you do have corporate contact tracks, there is a higher level of income.
Yep.
There is generally more of a flow or a funnel of clientele to you.
Mhm.
You can be a contractor, you can be a consultant, and you can generally do that in your area of expertise, which is really helpful to ramp up. But you need to understand what it takes because some companies, organizations require going through the supply chain vendor process,
Yep.
uh, signing all kinds of contract language, having higher levels of professional insurance, general liability insurance. So then you have to go through their payables process
Yep.
and become part of that automated affair. Again, I have a person who does that for me. Thank God, because I do not have the patience for that administrative minutia. Another thing that we have to do is track all of our expenses, whether we're billing them back to the client or whether it's for the income tax purposes annually. And that's not easy. I hate that. I suck at it. I just do.
Every January you complain about it and then you push it to February.
Oh my
paperwork
God.
is paperwork is my superpower, so I don't have anyone helping me with that. But it is, when you think about like what you're going to charge, you often think like, well, am I worth X dollars an hour? And you start to get that doubt of like, oh, I've asked for this much, and what if they don't hire me at this? And do I need to lower my prices? And all this goes through your head. I've had many a sleepless night in the beginning
Uh-huh.
as I was like, what am I, how am I gonna how am I going to justify the amount of money that I'm spending, or that I'm charging? But you forget that all of these little things add up to what you're actually going to deliver.
Mhm.
Um, they're not just paying for the hour that you spent with a client, they're paying for the 17 hours that it took to get into their system so that you could actually get paid. And
Yeah,
then following up
exactly.
because you don't get paid because there was a glitch in the system where you weren't flagged by so and so, or it wasn't approved by this manager or that manager or whatever.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of that overhead is on you, or you pay someone to do it like you do.
hmm And you're exactly right. I'm so glad you brought up what we charge because that is the number one question and hand-wringing process of every coach that I know and consultant. Um, oh my gosh, what do I charge? How do I know what to charge? And it is when you're a solopreneur, so personal.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, I'm putting a value on me and what
hmm
I can offer, and how
And
dare
they're
I?
and they're rejecting me
Uh-huh.
when I'm too expensive.
Uh-huh. Yes.
Yeah, it's very personal. I mean, I remember sleeping, like not being able to go to sleep because I didn't get a job. And I was like, oh, I charged too much. And this wasn't even a job that I had like gone after. This was one that came to me. They were asking me for help. I priced it for what I thought was worth my time and effort and the expertise that they were getting. And they didn't want to pay that much. And
Mhm.
I was racked with like, oh, I should have charged less. And then I really had to give myself a talking to over like, wait a minute. If they're not willing to pay, that doesn't mean that you're not worth it. It
Mhm.
means that their budget was lower. It means that they got their needs met in another way, but it's not a commentary on your worth,
Yeah.
which is what I had to carry around a lot.
Yeah. Great points.
Yeah.
Also, what we do takes more time than even the administrative minutia.
hmm
We are paid for our expertise, our certifications, the time we're spending on those
Yeah.
things, but also there's prep work to do
Yes. A lot.
prior to a session, a lot. There is follow-up work to do.
Some there's oftentimes I will custom make things for my clients, and it's a couple of hours after I meet with them that I'm putting together a package for them to use or sometimes not use.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Right.
that meditation I recorded for you, you don't use. Okay, cool.
Yeah, you never listen to it. Great. Yeah. And I think you and I both, we're more like concierge coaches. So
Mhm.
anybody can text me anytime or say, hey, do you have 5, 10 minutes for a quick phone call? Or
Yep,
I just need to brainstorm. So again, it's much broader than the typical sessions, an hour,
exactly.
right? If you're thinking about consulting, you would think, not treat you would think you would be treated as a key subject matter expert.
Mm-mm.
I have not found that to be true.
You have to
You
prove it.
yeah, you are. I'll speak for myself. I have been treated as you're here because we needed extra help and we're paying you as a contractor. And so we're going to squeeze every bit of time
Yeah,
out of you. We're going to ask for things um, on a moment's notice and expect the fastest turnaround possible. And yes, we expect you to be available in person or by Zoom or whatever virtual platform. Um, Nights, evenings, weekends, early mornings.
yeah.
Get
Anytime
ready,
we need
babe.
you.
Anytime we need you. Yeah, yeah. So.
Which, if you want to go into your own business and create your own boundaries, you might find that you're not able to do so, right? Because of the work that you take on.
Mhm.
I have the luxury of not working full time. I've got a couple of remodels going on. We've decided not to pay property managers for that. And so it's taken a lot of my time away from coaching. Not sure if you can hear Newton, but he's got
Can hear
something
Newton.
to say about it. Has not loved the remodels. But that process of, hold on just one second. Let me yell at the. All right, that might help. The last bark. I've had that luxury of kind of being able to dial back and then ramp up at times. But that also means that when I'm ready to come back, the clientele might not be there, right? So a lot of my remodels happened last year, which was a pretty good year for coaching. And I'm finding this year it's a lot, a lot more, there's a lot less available. And again, that means that you've got to ramp up your non-coaching time and your development time so that you've got your offerings out there and you're creating new things, you're trying different things, you're putting things out there in the market to see what hits depending on what's going on. So there's a lot less. So if you don't decide to do consulting and you're still doing your solopreneur thing and you're doing only coaching, it's a lot more little clients that you're trying to grab versus your big whale. But your big whale wants you 24/7. Your little clients, they're much more respectful. That doesn't mean that they still can't call you and text you, but they're not expecting a full like SWOT analysis turned over. The idea happens on a Thursday and now we want it on a Friday morning.
Exactly. So just things to be aware of. In addition, I'm the main breadwinner of our household. And so I always carry the insurance, all the benefits, all the retirement accounts. And so, if you're thinking about doing this, you really have to minimize your risk. And so I would say it's best to do this kind of thing once kids are out of the home because a risk minimization tactic is to open yourself up to the big whales and keep that funnel open of business all the time, which is hard to do when you've got kids at home. Number two, minimize your expenses in the rest of your life. Sell the big home, uh, sell the fancy cars, look at a minimalistic lifestyle, because you want that cash flow, to come in and be able to support your lifestyle, to support your family. For me, there's also guilt. Sometimes I feel like I've put the family financial sustainability at risk because of the shift I made. And I didn't really expect that. I didn't expect that guilt or that, heavy on the shoulders impact so much. So just I think those are the main things that I would say people really need to reflect on, consider, plan for. And I would have said it's best to start the business part-time on the side while you're still in corporate to have a better bridge or a slower or just a better time to ramp up. But your points at the beginning were great.
Well, two things that you highlighted on that I think are interesting. One, the loneliness, right? When you go from a corporate team and you can call up anybody and say, hey, I want to brainstorm on this, and you've been great about doing this. It takes a lot of community building to get yourself a little cohort of people that you can call and be like, hey, I'm thinking about this. Can I brainstorm with you? I didn't anticipate the loneliness so much as I did. And then you mentioned guilt. I don't have guilt from a family perspective, but I have guilt from a lean in perspective. Like, oh, I've opted out of corporate. I'm not doing my part to further the women's initiative out there in the world and become a VP and become the CEO and whatnot, and it's interesting because that was a choice that I made specifically for me and my health and whatnot. It still draws me, right? The societal aspect of like, well, you have to be in corporate, you have to make a lot of money, you need to drive, you need to grind. And I feel guilty opting out of that. I
Yeah.
feel like, well, I'm very privileged, which I am very privileged to be able to do that. But it also feels like it's not what everyone else is doing.
Hmm.
Um, and so that feels very different and very isolating and very much like, oh, it sucks for you that you're doing that you have to deal with that. I don't.
Hmm. You've left a community, you have left a culture. And it's also odd. I mean, people think it's just odd and a little crazy to step out of that. It's like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah,
Why would you do that?
to get off the hamster wheel. Even though they want to get off the hamster wheel, they're a little bit like, well, how dare you?
Right. And there are questions like, well, wasn't it going well?
Yeah.
Were you not up for it? Couldn't you do it anymore?
Yeah, aren't you strong enough?
Aren't you strong enough? There's an ageism kind of question. Did you lose energy for it?
Yeah.
Like what?
Couldn't,
No.
couldn't you hack it?
Can you hack it? Yes.
Yep.
Or did you do something wrong and get fired? No, no. I thought it would be great to leave at the pinnacle of success
Well,
and try this while I'm young enough to try it and have enough energy to do it and to go back if it fails. I mean, you have to think about business failure as well.
yep. Yep. Well, and then I would say my final thing is it takes a lot of stick to itiveness to stay a solopreneur because I mean, I'll come across job postings and I'm like, I could do that.
Hmm.
And my husband is really great. There was one for the National Board of Health and Wellness that
Oh,
we both are on, right? This was about a year ago. And it was a marketing and media position. And I printed it out and I came to my husband and I was like, I think I could do this. And he's like, yeah, yes, you could do this.
yes.
Of course you could do this. You've done this.
That's not
Um,
the question, is it?
but there is something, at least in my personality, that's still like, ooh, but somebody would hire me to do this thing, and then I would have this steady paycheck, and then I would have this, and then he's like, yes, and you'd give up. Kate Merritt Coaching has a very generous holiday package. We have a very generous vacation package as I'm spending my 5th week in Hawaii. Um,
Mhm.
and not all companies have the same vacation and holiday packages that Career Coaching has. We have a very flexible work environment.
Yes, with a very flexible schedule all around.
And
Yes.
he's like, yes, you could do this job for $100,000 a year, but remember everything that you would be giving up as you get the security and as you get the like they like me, they really like me feeling. Remember what you're giving up and that everything has trade-offs. So I'm very much lured into, and the dollar value doesn't even matter all that much. It's just that like, ooh, someone could give me a title.
Mhm.
Or
Mhm.
someone could give me like I could be a part of a team again. I could work for SurveyMonkey.
Yeah, yeah. And I call that, and this is my final thing, serving up my ego needs.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because, the first thing people ask when you beat them for the first time is what do you do?
Mm-hmm.
Um, or where do you work? And anytime I have the ability to go do an appointment during the week, the question is, are you off work today? And I have to admit that I didn't realize because I'm a very practical, pragmatic person. Um, it stroked my ego when I was able to tell people my title and where I worked, which was generally the biggest, health system or hospital in the area. And there was always a, Oh, especially as a woman, people didn't expect me, and I think you too, to have these titles that we had. And I was surprised how much after I left. That was like
Yeah.
interesting. I'm just not viewed the same way by others.
Yeah.
When I say I work from home
Yeah.
or I'm an executive coach, generally it's what's that?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. There's the ego piece. Be
There's the
prepared.
ego piece.
Be prepared for the ego piece.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a good snapshot of the good, the bad, and the ugly.
I think so too. It was nice to compare and contrast.
Hmm.
These are topics we haven't even talked about previously. So nice.
Exactly. I hope it was helpful for people.
I do too. I do too. So we should send this out as a primer to anyone thinking about this kind of transition.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, have a good one.
Happy 100th.
Yes, happy 100th. Thank you.
Thank you.
A
Bye
pleasure
now.
to do this with you.
And with you.
Thank you.